keep going. Let's keep going. So the next one is, how blessed are those that show mercy, for they shall be shown mercy. Now, first thing that happens when I read something like this is there's corollary verses that kind of pop into my head. So I'm kind of like Ephesians 4:32, where it says, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving each other, just as Christ has forgiven you. Or where Jesus says in Matthew 6:14, for if you forgive others their transgressions, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, then your Father will not forgive your transgressions. So immediately my sort of thoughts start to go towards forgiveness, mercy, and forgiveness as synonyms. So I had to sit here and say, well, what does this word really mean? I mean, is that what mercy is? Because we have all these words that we use in church, and we just throw them around, and we use them almost casually, right? But do we really ever dig down into them? So first thing I had to do was start looking into what the word actually was. So forgiveness is definitely a part, of what mercy is. That's definitely a component of it. But the words here, the first word mercy there, it's actually only used a couple times in the whole New Testament. I won't try to pronounce it. But it's, I'm not a Greek scholar by any means. It means to be actively compassionate. It's not a release. It's not just a word. It's not just like, I forgive you. It's from the inside, right? Compassion. We're going along with somebody. There's a co there. And the second one is to have mercy on. It has a bunch of different meanings. This is the more common word that's used throughout. The last definition here, I think, is the one that matters in this verse. If you have compassion, active compassion for others, you will experience mercy. I don't think this is a command. I think this is descriptive. It's not like, hey, show mercy so you can have mercy. This is an attitude of our hearts that we can carry around. We start to see this, and we start to interact with the world differently. We get to experience things differently. It's how our eyes are seeing, how our hearts are seeing the world that moves us. So this mercy, born out of compassion. It's an action that is born out of compassion. It's something we can do. It's an attitude we can have. Words that are associated with it, leniency. Leniency is here. These are more formal definitions. So that's the quality or state of being mild or intolerant in disposition or effect. Forbearance is a refraining from the enforcement of something such as a debt, right, or obligation that's due. Clemency is a disposition to be merciful, especially to moderate the severity of a punishment. So there may be something that you feel is due, but we let it go. It might be, hey, the kids were being really nasty, so I was like, hey, you're going to bed early. Right after dinner, you're going to bed. But we have dinner hour and a half late. Right? So we're being hard, but soft at the same time. We have forgiveness is a word that comes in here. Benevolence, kindness. There's just a view of the world that is going to be changed. Now, to get inside this, I actually want to go in a completely different direction for a few minutes. And before I come back to mercy. Because I started looking through the Bible to see where mercy starts popping in. And it doesn't really show up. The concept of mercy doesn't show up until Exodus. There's favor, like God has favor on Noah and lets him live, and things like that. But there's really not a concept of God's mercy until Exodus. Specifically, we start talking about the Ark of the Covenant. Now, the Ark of the Covenant, I kind of geeked out hard on this as I put things together here. All right, so what it is, it's just a wooden box. Wooden box, about 3.5 feet long, 1.5 foot tall, 1.5 foot wide. It's made of acacia wood, which is an okay wood. You know, it's not like junk wood or anything, but it's just wood. And then took this wood, just glasses. I don't need to see. Obviously, I don't need them, don't have them on. So this wood is covered in gold. It's covered in gold. And then inside of this box, I don't know if we know this, maybe I need to give a little more background. So after Exodus, after the Israelites brought out of Egypt, they're on their way to the promised land. They had a little issue out by a mountain, so it's going to take a little longer than they're supposed to. Namely, it's going to be like 40 years. But they have this, Moses goes up on a mountain. It does this a couple times. And one of the times he goes up there for 40 days. He comes down and he has the law, and he has plans for a thing called the Tabernacle and plans for this Ark of the Covenant. Those are the things that he comes down with. So the Tabernacle is going to be a tent, and this kind of elaborate, ornate tent. I mean, you can go through Exodus and read about every detail of this thing. I mean, that was one of the most mind-numbing parts of the Bible to me, is this little thing in Exodus where they go through detail, and they're like, hey, and make this little piece this big, this wide, this tall, that long, make it to this color, beat it this way, you know, and then put pomegranates around it or whatever. It just goes through this whole thing for chapters. For chapters. And then it says, so they made a box this big, that big, that big, this little big pomegranate, and it just repeats the whole thing again. But it's just like they carried out every little, it doesn't just say, so they did it. So it must be important. But so they get these plans for the tabernacle. This is where everybody's going to meet with God. This is where people are going to meet with God. They gather to worship there. And a part of this tabernacle is a little more cordoned off, and that's going to be the Holy of Holies, where only the high priest can go. And inside of that, there's going to be this thing called the Ark of the Covenant. And this Ark of the Covenant, as we see up there, end up with 3 things inside of this ark. There's a tablet of the law stored in there. The manna, the bread that came from, was like settled as dew on the ground every morning for the Israelites to eat. Their bread that was in there. There's a jar of that's put in there. And Aaron had a rod that at one point, God makes it bud and flower with almond blossoms. So it's just like, hey, the stick is suddenly growing out of nothing. And these are all inside of this ark. And this ark is actually so holy and so important to God that no one's allowed to touch it. When it has to be transported with the tent, there's like rings on it that poles have to be shoved through, and then people can carry the poles. There's one story where somebody actually puts a hand on it with good intention. When David, one of the times where the ark got taken, David's bringing it back on a cart, which wasn't how it was supposed to be transported, but it starts to tip over, and somebody tries to stop it from tipping over, and he touches the ark, so God strikes him down. There's something very holy and precious about this ark. I have a few pictures of some artist renditions of it. Okay? And there are even replicas of it out there around. And you find a whole bunch of different ones. So it's just like, it's a box. It's a box that's gilded. Now here, let's go back to this. A little bit more. In this Ark of the Covenant, there's the tablets of the law. So it has the law on the inside. Manna, that's the bread of life. Right? And the rod that blossomed. The stick that grew flowers. That's resurrection. These are the things that are inside the ark. So let's talk about each of those. So here's a verse from Romans. All right, talks about the law written on our hearts. It says, they show that what the law requires is written in their hearts, to which their conscience also bears witness. And their conflicting thoughts will accuse or perhaps excuse them on the day when, according to the gospel, God through Jesus Christ will judge the secrets of all. This is people, when people do right, it's because of the law that is written on their hearts, on the inside, right? John 6:51 says, this is Jesus speaking. He says, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats this bread, he will live forever. Furthermore, the bread I will give is my own flesh, and I will give it for the life of the world. And then Colossians 1:27, to them God chose to make known how great the Gentiles are, among the Gentiles are the riches of the glory of the mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. All right. Bread of life in you. And then 1 Corinthians 15:21. For since death came through a human being, the resurrection of the dead has also come through human. For as all die in Adam, so will all be made alive in Christ. We are the Ark of the Covenant now. We have the resurrection life in us. We have the bread of life in us. We have the law written on our hearts. We symbolize the presence of God. That's what this ark represented. It was the presence of God. Now all these things are true about us. The ark was lost. The time when Babylonia came in, I don't know, somewhere around 600 BC, maybe a little bit after that, Babylon came and the ark was lost. You know, they even made movies about finding it again, right? But the ark, there's some people claim they know where it is, or some people claim that it can be found again, but it's been lost. Nobody has actually seen it or proven that it's around anymore. But it doesn't need to be around anymore because we're here. The lid of the Ark of the Covenant is made of gold. You saw it. It had the cherubim up there and everything. The lid is called the mercy seat. It is the covering of the ark. Mercy is the covering over the top of this thing. It is what protects all that's inside. It is what keeps the resurrection power safe. It's what keeps the bread of life safe. It's what keeps the law safe within our hearts. It's the mercy seat. There's a word up there. It's only used for this mercy seat. The first part of the word, again, not a Hebrew scholar or anything, but the first part of the word, it just means cover. And then it has a strange ending on it. And it's been interpreted as a mercy seat. So here's just one more artist thing here. So another rendition. So it is said that when it was in the tabernacle, in that Holy of Holies, that Moses would speak to God through the wings, between the wings of this. And that's how he communicated. This was their place of unity. This is where they got together. Literally, it's mercy seat. Another word we might use is atonement. It's the seat of at one met. Right? It's where God and Moses met as one and spoke to each other. Now we are where God speaks to the world. That's pretty heavy. Pretty heavy responsibility. Okay, so mercy is here. Mercy is our covering. Mercy is the thing. So how is mercy talked about in the Bible? There are literally hundreds of verses speaking of mercy in the Bible. I actually tried to make a count of them. I was like going through it, and I realized I have no idea. Because you have the roots and then the little endings on it that change the meaning a little bit, and you can't, even if you go back, okay, how many times does the word Greek word for mercy used in the whole Bible. If we go back to the Septuagint, can't figure it out. I can't. I'm sure there's some linguist out there who has, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's there a lot. So I just want to read through some verses about it and see if we can get a picture of what mercy means in the Bible. And we have places where there are just these declarations about mercy. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life in the Psalms. We're familiar with those, right? We've come across these a few times. I will dwell in the house of the Lord. Or, therefore, the Lord waits to be gracious to you, and he'll rise up to show mercy to you. For the Lord is a God of justice, and blessed are all those who wait. So these are like declarations, all of these. I don't really get a description of mercy out of these, but I definitely see that it's a center. After all, Jesus says, go and learn what this means. I want mercy, not sacrifice. I don't need you to give up stuff as much as I need you to just show mercy. Be merciful. Some more. When they came to the crowd, a man came to him, knelt before him, and said, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he's an epileptic, and he suffers terribly. And he falls into the fire and into the water. So here I at least get an idea. Show mercy. This is some sort of action. It's an action. Show mercy. He doesn't want him to go, it's okay, young man. You'll be fine. Right? He wants something fixed. Showing mercy is making something better. Or there's in the parable, should you not have mercy on your fellow slave as I had mercy on you? That's a parable where the king forgives the massive debt to a servant instead of throwing him in jail, and then the servant goes out and goes, hey, you owe me $100, give it to me now. Oh, you're going to jail. All right? So these are some types here. So that forgiving of a debt, that releasing, is part of mercy. Get new ones up there? Okay. Sorry, interface is weird for me. Still learning it. All right. So here's another set. Just as you were once disobedient to God, but now you've received mercy because of your disobedience. So they have been disobedient in order that by the mercy shown, they may now receive mercy. For God has imprisoned all disobedience that he may be merciful to all. So out of this sense of mercy, there's a change in behavior and attitude. Our disobedient hearts, our disobedient minds, our disobedient desires are changed as an act of mercy. And then there's this last one is just like, hey, here's a little greeting. Hey, Timothy, grace, mercy, and peace. How you doing? Did you walk around the streets giving that one out? Instead of how you doing, the meaningless how you doing, just, hey, grace, mercy, peace. I think that would be nice. And here's one. Let's approach the throne of grace with boldness so we may receive mercy. All right. This is receiving mercy and finding grace in a time of need. There's something that changes in us. So I had a question. What does this look like? And I was struggling with coming up with a picture of mercy. And then I, of course, had to find one with public domain rights. But that's just part of this. What does mercy look like? And when I was pondering this, I started to think, well, who do I know, or what do I know, is showing mercy in this world? And I started to think of some of the organizations that are out there. Like Compassion International came to mind. What does mercy look like? And actually, they have a great write-up on this. A couple great write-ups of it. If you search Compassion International and Mercy, they have a page where they, just 2 pages actually, long pages, where they discuss what this all means to them. But their actions of mercy, what does it look like? They find children, poor children, in need, feed them, clothe them, educate them, care for them, right? And the children still stay with their families and things like that, but mercy is an action that they take that actually affects and betters these people's lives forever. Another organization I thought of was International Justice Mission. Their goal and their purpose is they go around and they find oppressed people. One of their focuses is to anti-slavery, anti-trafficking. They find people who are trapped in slavery and they find ways to bring them out. Sometimes through legal action, they'll fight laws in countries. They will advocate for people. Anybody who's oppressed or vulnerable. Like one I read about recently was there was a woman who was losing her land to some male relative unjustly, and they went in and worked the legal system so that she could keep her land after she was widowed. So somebody was trying to take away from her. So they step in and they say, no, this isn't going to happen. They go find people who are being abused and find a way to protect them and to put the abusers in jail. They go around the world doing this. They have hundreds and hundreds of people that they've helped. Or maybe closer to us that we might see something like St. Jude, St. Jude's Hospital, where they take children with cancer and they treat them free of cost, all based on donations from other people. And they take care of the families and support them through the whole thing at no charge. Sorry. Reading through a bunch of those stories at the same time gets a little emotional. So last night as I was studying this, I just kind of like stared at my computer and crying, thinking about all these people. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much pain in this world. And what is mercy? Mercy is alleviating that pain. It's taking action to take some of that pain out of this world. That's where it comes to mercy for me now, is I look to find things that are wrong, and I'm going to make them better. It doesn't have to be, okay, I'm going to rescue slaves, people who are enslaved. I might not have the means to do that, but there's certainly things in my everyday life that I can do this with. And it was kind of, I'm asking this question, I started looking through all these things, and then I'm like, well, duh, Jesus actually said this. Jesus actually said what mercy was. John the Baptist sends his disciples to say, hey, is this the thing? Are you really the Messiah? And Jesus says, yep. No, he didn't do that. He says, look. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor hear the good news. Look at the fruit, look at the actions. This is the thing. This is the center. Things are being made better. Actions are being taken. Yeah, preaching's up there, the word's there, but that's not what he gives as the primary things. He says, look, the pain in this world is getting less. That's what mercy is. So, it's a little list. I started thinking, what are some simple ways to show mercy in my everyday life? What can I start instituting? And there's going to be a quiz in a few minutes because I'm going to ask y'all to do it too. I'm going to ask you to share. So I thought, how about something like being patient with that person who really gets on your nerves? Just not making faces at them. Just being like, yeah, I can put up with this. This is not that bad. I can deal with this. That's a mercy. I'm not causing pain. Even if it's inadvertent, right? Rolling your eyes, whatever, or just trying to get through something. Helping anybody in a difficult situation, whether somebody's trying to load groceries and they have too many things they're trying to carry. Hey, that's a pretty easy mercy I can get in on. Right? Hey, they're struggling. I can grab a bag and carry it for them. That seemed like a simple one. The next one is like, wow, this would make a big difference in our society right now. How about being kind when somebody says something offensive to you? Something you don't agree with? Something you feel strongly about? You don't have to affirm it, but you can be kind. Right? We can be nice. We can be polite. We don't have to strike back. We can let things go. Spend time with somebody who's unpopular. Find somebody who might be a little bit isolated. Sit down with them, listen to them. Maybe just hang out. That's a simple mercy. Takes a little bit of time, right? Forgiving people who hurt you. That's good for both of you, right? Walking around with unforgiveness is painful for everybody, especially if it's somebody you have to interact with on a regular basis. Just release it. Doesn't have to forget, but you don't have to try to exact payment out, right? We can just let things go sometimes. And it's amazing how freeing that is for us. I'm standing up in front. I can embarrass you more than you can embarrass me. Just so you know, girls. All right. They're making faces at me. Yeah, oh, yeah, I should be merciful to them, huh? How about something to give to somebody in need? We see needs all the time. I've heard people argue, you see somebody on a corner with a street sign, what if you give them money and they use it to buy alcohol or drugs? What does that have to do with me? I wasn't told to tell them how to behave. I was told to give to those who ask. Really concerned about it? Throw a bunch of $10 gift cards in your car. Hand those out. You know you're going to see people on the corner sometime, right? Sometimes it's here in Platteville, sometimes in Madison, sometimes in Milwaukee, wherever you end up traveling. Say I love you, even when you're mad. But really say it, not through gritted teeth. Yeah. It's okay to say, I am hurt and angry right now, but I love you. So this last one's more prescriptive to me. Just something I need to get a lot better at. Cleaning up after people without muttering. Just put these things away. It's not that hard. The trash can's just right there. It's okay. I love you. What thoughts do you have?